See, this goes for about
There we
40,
go.
less
It's
than
recording.
40 minutes, right? And then, you know, as a matter of fact, I have a whole bunch of my old uniforms, you know, from the Sounders, from San Diego, from the New York Arrows, when I was the captain of the national team playing against China, right? So, look, check this out, brother. So now, hey, here we got the original Seattle Sounders. People are
There
like,
it
oh
is.
my God, you know, guys that do collecting,
Right.
right? The first captainship playing against China, right? This is the number 13 player. So my buddy Tom Byer, who built the grassroots soccer in China, in Japan, for the last 20 years, he's the one that is now working in China. So I'm going to say, Tom Byer, this is a shout out to you, and soccer starts at home. This is an assignment I have for you because of the coronavirus. See if you can get your buddies that you've worked with in the coaching to find out who this player is. A couple of my buddies have been recently sending me pictures about this game. You see how cool and interactive and fun this is going to be?
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Right.
Tell me what we're doing here, brother, because you're the guy that knows how to do this.
Are we live?
Well, right now we are at 6 o'clock.
All right. We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Genius Soccer International Academy. This is episode 1 of the podcast with David Erico.
Dorico, brother. Dorico. This is our first episode. We got to get it right.
We can edit that out. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm fired. Welcome to Genius Soccer International Academy. This is Brandon Stone and David Dorico.
Brandon, great to be on board, and is really exciting because this is our first episode for Genius Soccer International Academy. And to give a little background, I was the former captain of the U.S. national team. I had the great honor of playing against Pele and Cruyff and Beckenbauer, Carlos Alberto, Georgie Best, the greatest American players like Bobby Smith and Werner Roth and Shep Messing and Al Trost, all these great players. And Genius Soccer International really comes about, this academy comes about by playing against Pele and marking him. And I had an angel that was speaking in my voice, in my ear, saying, what is making Pele a genius? That was
voice said,
yes, it was like this
Stop.
epiphany. Yeah.
Stop. What is making Pele a genius?
Yes, and I'm marking him, and I'm from New Jersey, so nobody I know talks like that. So it was really intriguing, and that helped change my life in terms of understanding what made Pele a genius, and then what made other players geniuses. And then it led to the fact that right now the World Cup is in 2026, is going to be in the United States. So I feel we have to get everybody together in all these divergent groups to have the goal of winning the World Cup in 2026. Stick that soccer flag in the soccer hill and say we have to win it. And then what are we going to do to work together to win it? And then we have to have what we call Genius Soccer America now have our own style of play, which is from the best of the best. Pele, Garrincha, Rivellino, all the Jairzinho, Carlos Alberto, Gilmar, all these geniuses from Brazil, Argentina, Italy, England, all over the world. And the idea is to have the best of the best and then create cultures, create standards, right? So now, especially with the coronavirus and the social isolation, how do the teams even how do they even work with their players? So now we're partnered with a company out of England that has an academy management software with video that you can follow some of the best video. It tracks the players. And now we want to set up standards, testing and evaluation and testing standards. So now, Brandon, we can compare apples to apples all over the world. So for a young player that grassroots, Tom Byer is a great friend. He literally captured the whole idea of grassroots soccer from 1.5 to 7 years old. Working in Japan for the last 20 years, his teaching methodologies, not only for players, coaches, parents, and referees, but for 20 years, he's been working in Japan, and they call him Tom-san out of honor. And he has a book called Soccer Starts at Home. He has a coaching program called T3. And the idea is to reach the kids, the players, when they're young. And that the parents are some of the most important, influential people. Why? They're with their, number one, they're the parents. Number two, they're with the children all day. And how to involve the parents. Right now, the way the current status is, people hate the parents because they're screaming and yelling and they're disruptive. You know why? Because they've never been included and never been part of the solution. So the same thing with referees, with coaches, with players. So instead of, Tom says, instead of kicking the ball, you know, having a big giant ball, maybe half the size of the kid, now you have all these small size balls all around the house and you're working on skill moves, manipulation, thinking ahead, vision. And so he just got hired 2 years ago by the president of China to replicate the same formula. They have over 150 million children under 6 years old. And Tom's system, Brandon, helped the Japanese women win the World Cup in 2011 against the Americans. This is when they had a tsunami, an earthquake, and a nuclear meltdown. Could you imagine the entire East Coast going through that? And the women were so strong that they kept their focus in honor of the people at home to beat the greatest team, some of the greatest team, in this case, the Americans. It was extraordinary. Next year, next cycle, the Americans came back and win. But that kind of love and passion and focus and making sure the kids are having fun. This is really, really critical, that the coaches are having fun. The referees are having fun. Why? Because now they're seeing things that are, I call my OMG moment, oh my God moment. It takes your breath away. Do you see what that kid just did? The defender's coming on him. He thought ahead, he saw him, he flicked it over his head before the ball hit the ground. Bang, goal. Well, guess what I'm describing? I'm describing Pele when he was 17 years old playing against France in the semifinal, where he took a ball on his chest and he flipped it over the guy's head, and the guy came in with the sole of his foot and almost broke his hip. He fought that move off before the ball hit the ground. He volleyed it into the goal. So now Americans have a benchmark, not to just be like Pele, but Pele's the benchmark. Now, how do we produce players that are even greater than Pele, even greater than Garrincha? Well, if you don't know who Garrincha is, and that's part of what Genius Soccer Academy is, to identify the players, have specific skills assigned to that player. And now when we say Garrincha move all over the world, it's the same move, Cruyff move.
Right.
Right? Puskás, brilliant lefty, played for Hungary. Magnificent. So each move is going to be identified. Why is that important? Because you have history, you have heroes, you have standards, you have skill moves. So if I say Puskás,
everyone's on the same page.
Everybody's on the same page. What do you think of that?
Man, what better way to progress forward to everyone everywhere knows what everyone else is talking about. You're all speaking the same language.
Excellent. Tell us a little bit about you and how we met, and also what you do at your college, which to me you know, like your journey, because to me, you're just as important as me. Everybody is. Why? Because we all have our own journey and we all have our own experience. So if you wouldn't mind, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and, you know, how you came to where you're at right now with David DeRico.
Happy to share, David.
Thank you.
My parents were missionaries in Brazil when I was a kid. So I went to Brazil when I was 8 years old. This was before I knew anything about soccer, knew anything about Portuguese. Come to Brazil at 8 years old. My birthday was 2 days after we got to Brazil. We got to Brazil on the 21st.
Wow.
The 23rd was my birthday.
Fantastic.
So all the other, my parents were part of the Southern Baptist Mission Board. Well, in Rio, in the South, there was a group of missionaries and missionary families and missionary kids. And so they threw a birthday party for me. We're called cousins. So all the missionary kids were cousins.
Very
all the missionary family, moms and dads were my aunts and uncles.
Sure.
So Jeremy was my cousin, was my MK, my missionary kid cousin.
Very interesting.
And he was part of the people there at my birthday. 2 days after I got to Brazil, I met my cousins. So Jeremy was one of my cousins, part of the Halleck family.
Fantastic. Now, Jeremy's dad and mom were missionaries as well?
Yes.
Fantastic.
So Jeremy was a little bit older than me.
Okay.
So, like, I kind of knew him, but we weren't, like, close. I played a lot of soccer with his younger brother, Gabriel, who was actually really good at soccer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool.
He was really good, Gabriel. But, like, Jeremy was a little bit older. Jeremy and I were never, like, close, but, like, our families knew each other. Fast forward, Jesus, what is it, 30? 30 years? Yeah. 30
Amazing.
Years
Amazing.
Later.
Beautiful.
You know, Jeremy and I are friends on Facebook. I start this podcast about soccer, and Jeremy's like, hey, I got a guy.
I got a guy. That's a Jersey line. I got a guy. I got a guy. You know, the guy that gets you the refrigerators and the microwaves and the coats.
I know a guy.
I got a guy. No, not I know a guy. I got a guy.
Yes, I got a guy.
Oh, that's too funny.
And he introduced me to but let's rewind that before we get to that point. So met Jeremy when I was 8. Growing up in Brazil, after the World Cup '94, I became obsessed with soccer. Played every single day of my life. Wanted to go pro. My hero was Ronaldo, number 9, the phenomenal. Came back to the States, played some college ball, played for Real Estate College, and then went to OU and played like club at OU, University of Oklahoma, and then played at Northeastern State University for Charlie Mitchell.
One of my best buddies, great guy from Scotland, played at Rochester, New York Cosmos. He was at the 50th reunion game that we had here at FC Dallas. So he's a sweetheart, great guy.
Yeah, so played for Charlie, and then in 2005, January 2005, I had moved to Philadelphia I went to Ocean City, Maryland during the summer, and then usually I'd come back to Oklahoma to go to college. Well, I stayed out there that winter and was managing a Cold Stone Creamery over the winter. I took a break from college, and January 2005, I was in a car accident. I was stopped at a red light.
Wow.
This guy was schizophrenic. He runs into the back of my car going between 60 and 80 miles an hour.
Wow.
And just like demolishes my car. I was very lucky to have survived. 2 of the 3 layers of my descending aorta were torn. So I had that like third layer, like millimeter thick third layer had torn. I would have bled out internally right then and there.
Wow.
And then I had like 3 broken vertebrae. One of my vertebrae damaged my spinal cord. So it affected my ability to walk. So ever since that car accident in 2005, I haven't been able to walk functionally. It's been a long process of trying to walk again, but I've needed a wheelchair to live my day-to-day life, and definitely have not played soccer ever since. So it took me forever to be able to see a soccer field and not just break down crying.
Wow. Talk about love, huh? Passion, huh? That's amazing. That's amazing.
Because I just miss it so much. It was just painful. So once I finally started to get over that pain, I started to go to games again and be able to actually enjoy the games, and not just like be like, oh, I wish I was out there, you know, just able to finally like sit back and enjoy it for what it was. And then I started to become involved with the local college team. I gave like a couple motivational speeches, told about my story. That was kind of the start of it. And then just like was at the games all the time. My dad was actually the chaplain for the team, so he'd
Wow.
bring me all the
Fantastic.
time. Yeah. And then eventually, you know, I always wanted like to be able to have some sort of impact, to be able to contribute, whether it be just
Fantastic.
like by me always
Love it.
being there,
Right.
or just by me trying to walk again and share that story with them of like just perseverance and resilience. And then I got this book called, it's actually over here. Let me grab it. I got this book called, hang on, it's right over here actually. There it is. So, it looks like Casper the Ghost, I know.
He's fading away into a different matrix. What is the book?
There. It's a book called Soccer the Mind Game.
And who wrote it?
It's by Steve Bull and Chris Shambrook. They're two doctors, PhDs out of England. And it's basically 7 different steps, what they call, to achieving mental toughness. 7 different aspects of the game, including things like confidence, managing nerves, focus and concentration, setting goals, working as a team. There's a couple others too I can't think of right now. But so this was basically like my blueprint to start working with
Excellent.
the team. And I started, you know, I would give like some generic, like I've talked to the entire team about some of the things, and then I would work with them one-on-one and kind of like help them evaluate themselves on different aspects of their game, like fitness, the mental side, the skills side, and just like outside of the pitch. And I would like help them like evaluate themselves on those parts and see like, okay, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Okay, so now out of your weaknesses, what do you want to focus on? What goals do you want to set to work on this next month to get your weaknesses up, you know, improve on your strength, improve on your weaknesses while maintaining your strengths. And so like just the fact of doing all that would improve their confidence, because they would know that, yeah, I do have some weaknesses, but I am doing something about it, but also reminding myself, these are my strengths. Like, no, this is what I'm good at. So just that whole process would help increase their confidence. And it's just been a joy for me to be able to have an impact on the team, and like to just be able to see like, okay, last semester they would get scored on. 7 out of the 11 players would put their head down after they get scored on, and their shoulders would go forward. And then after I started working with them, like they get scored on, their shoulders were back, their heads were up. They were like, let's go. Let's, you know, it was amazing to see. And just like to know that like I had a little bit of help with that, it was like I was on the field again.
Wow, I love. This reminds me of both of my sons. They were born 3 months premature in Cincinnati, and they've gone through some amazing things. It reminds me of Garrincha from Brazil, who was Pele's contemporary in 58 and 62. He was born with an S spine. Both his knees went in, and when he went out on the field, people thought he quotes, and I don't like to use this term, but they saw him as a cripple. But when he went out to play, his skill and his passion, his rhythm, and he was a genius. They called him Garrincha, means the little bird, because he was small in stature. But as we all know, it's not the size of the fight in the dog. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog, right? So Garrincha had this extraordinary skill and passion and incredible thinking ahead and vision and acceleration. I've never seen anything like it. So, like Aaron and you, it sounds like, you quotes, life deals you lemons. Well, guess what we're going to do? Make lemonade and then sell the lemonade in a lemonade factory. You know what I mean? Making the best. And I love the fact that you've turned it around. And this is important because Aaron has cerebral palsy. So some people will see him as this magnificent human being, and other people will see him with cerebral palsy. Is that similar with you, where people see you as a great human being, or people see your wheelchair? Have you been, is that challenge been presented to you, or how do you approach that? Because it sounds like what you're talking to me about, which is phenomenal, is that you feel a part of the team now. So how do you deal with that?
It's interesting to say that. I remember hearing some of the players talk about the first time they like saw me or heard me talk.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, all right, this guy's gonna come talk to us about soccer, and he gets here and like he's in a wheelchair, like,
with that little thing at the end, right? Wheelchair.
yeah, like. But then after they heard me talk, they're just like, wow, what have I ever been complaining about? Like,
Brilliant.
It just changed their perspective.
Wow, fantastic.
It's definitely, for me, like it's always going to be there. I'm always going to be insecure about it. Like I'm always going to think people are looking at me because I'm in a wheelchair because, well, they are looking at me because I'm in a wheelchair. But
a giraffe is a giraffe, right? A zebra is a zebra.
Yeah, that's right. But the thing is like how I decide my choice, how I decide to use that. Do I use that attention as something to be embarrassed about? Or do I use that attention as, hey, I've got their attention now. I can help them now that they're paying attention to me. I can use the wheelchair as a tool to help them.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah, because what you're doing is you can't change the situation. It is what it is. If you could change it, you're going to. But currently, where you're at, utilize it as an attention getter. How's this guy going to motivate me? Now, when they hear you speak, the love, the passion, and what you described, go into a soccer field and crying. How many players?
It wasn't even going. It would be like driving by a soccer field and seeing it way far away. Like that would just trigger me to just profusely crying.
Right.
Like,
and so here's the question.
Forever.
Right. And so here's the question. How many guys do you know when they're going to training, they're crying because they're so happy they're at training? They're so happy to see the coach. They're so happy to have a ball at their feet. They're so happy to run.
Oh, I wasn't crying because I was happy. I was crying because I couldn't play.
Right. So ask those guys, have you ever felt this kind of experience, and this is what I was talking to you before, we were talking off camera about Empathy Day. I would love to see that in schools and clubs, soccer clubs and business, where people that day, they have to walk around in crutches. They have to walk around with a blindfold. They have to walk around with earplugs. They can't speak the whole day. The whole day they can't speak. Now, all of this stuff of, people blaming people or prejudice or, seeing people. Now you're going to see a person as a human being. For example, the thing that I learned from my mother who passed away, she had a triple bypass. She had type 2 diabetes. She was an extraordinary person, and she also had cancer. So the gift that I got from my mother was, I love my mother. She wasn't cancer. She had cancer. You see what I mean? It's a massive difference the way you look at somebody and say, oh, my mother's got cancer, so my mother's not my mother anymore. She doesn't have feelings. And that's one of the major extraordinary gifts that I got. So when you come across your players, after they get to know you especially, or other people tell them, oh, who's this guy in a wheelchair? What is he going to teach us? Hey, dude, close the mouth, open the eyes, open the ears, and wait till the gifts flow. Wait till the gifts flow. And then all of a sudden they're going to say, oh my gosh, Brandon helped me be a really loving, responsible, respectful human being. Because that to me is 100%, right? If they're great citizens, they got a great heart.
David, the thing, David, that I think the feedback I've got and what I really believe is like, what I helped them the most was gratitude. Was just the fact to be able that they can put their own socks on and cleats on by themselves, lace them up, just be on the field, have the pleasure of having the pain of their lungs burning and legs burning in practice, because I can't have that anymore, and I would do anything for my legs to burn like they did and my lungs to burn like they did.
Brilliant. I love it.
Think that is the biggest thing I contributed to that team, because they never complained about having to run laps or anything like that after dealing with me.
No, that's brilliant, because again, people listening to this video blog, right, are not only going to hear us, but they're going to see us and realize, oh my gosh, every time that I thought I had it bad growing up, government housing, welfare, food stamps, parents divorced, all of that. My mother had 3 jobs. And I listen to other people, oh my gosh, I'm the most blessed guy in the world. And really, doesn't it really come down to choice? Like
choice, perspective, seeing things,
free will,
choosing,
right? Free will,
how you're going to choosing your attitude about things, choosing how you're going to look at things. Absolutely, David. Absolutely.
I'm very clear about one of the reasons why we even come to the earth. Why are we born? Why do we have our parents? There's 7 billion people in the world. How did Brandon and David come together? Through Jeremy and Beth. I referee soccer at Soccer Spectrum, and they play co-ed, and they're some of the nicest people I've ever met. And the fact that, Jeremy grew up down in Brazil, and Beth plays soccer too, and they adopted 2 children from Africa, 2 of the kindest, amazing. You know why? Because not only the mother and father, but the whole family. And you see amazing things and beautiful things. And that to me is what really drives me, and because to see that kind of stuff and to bring that out, right? To be able, for you, what I love about what you're doing is this is an opportunity to take that, let's call it formula, and then be able to take that onto a virtual coaching, because right now it's perfect because of the COVID-19. Now you can reach people and they can react to it. They could see video and say, oh my gosh, that's amazing what these guys are doing. How could I do that? How could I live in appreciation of walking?
Gratitude.
Yeah, gratitude. I love that word, gratitude. You see what I mean? So this is more, to me, it's like this Genius Soccer International is not just, it's not just about wanting to get better in soccer, but as a human being, as a citizen, giving back, knowing your gifts. How do I give back? How do I be of divine service to something that's greater than me? But without me and without you, it doesn't get done.
Right.
You see? So that going for that perspective, that every single person is important. One of the things you talked about that's important to me is that you reached every single player. What is the normal process? Maybe the coach only cares about one or two players, right? And here, you cared about every single player. You know, the other thing you did that I heard is you asked for self-evaluation. Because oftentimes, especially American coaches, we become the motivator. We feel let down if they don't we can't get them motivated. What about all over the world where I grew up in New Jersey? We were self-motivated. No one had to tell us to go out and practice. No one told us that we had to go train on the wall. That was my best friend growing up. Never got tired, never got sick, never went home, never took the ball, always gave me the ball back. And when the snow got above my head, we borrowed the shovel. We shoveled all the snow. We did, not anybody else. And we went to training again, left foot, right foot, left foot. We couldn't, if we didn't get the shovel, we played on the snow. Bicycle kicks, diving headers, all these amazing things. Skill move, keeping your balance in the snow, on the ice, it didn't matter. Right? Again, like you said, it's perspective. It's perspective. And so what we're doing, not only in Genius Soccer International, we're building a network of trusted strategic partners all over the world. So you've heard of 6 degrees of separation, right? This person knows that person around the world back to you.
Yeah, everybody's 6 degrees away from Kevin Bacon, right?
There you go. And us, we are putting together a network of 3 degrees of cultural connection. Brazil's a culture, Americans a culture, soccer's a culture. In this case, you have Jeremy and Beth. They introduce you to me. Now we're building these incredible bonds of respect and trust and working together, best practices, how to help each other. This is a completely different way of doing business than the current climate, right? The way we're acting, the way we're treating people, right? This is not, it's not, to me, it's not the old way. So the idea is, how do we take old school principles I grew up with, my parents and grandparents, your grandparents and grandparents, love, respect, fundamentals, going to work on time, doing a great job, overcoming adversity, loving your family, hard work. Oh my gosh, doing anything you could to help your children get to the next level, right? These are now take those old school principles, bring them into the new people, the millenniums, the Gen Zs, and bring it into the new technologies, the cell phone, video. And then cool school is helping people be the best they can be, giving back to the community, giving back to the world, and helping them be more efficient, more effective, and have a higher return on investment. So I see this podcast really like the spirit of soccer, or the spiritual side. It could be the spirit of art, of business, of religion, of anything. So that's part of what I feel is important, because in the end, as you know, and this is what I learned from my father passing away, you can't take a penny with you. All right? Again, that angel's voice said to me when I was over my father before he passed, that angel's voice said to me, I come in with not a penny, I leave with not a penny. I come in with the love, I leave with the love. Man, did that was another one, bang. And I blessed my father. when he was passing, and it was a priceless, once in a lifetime gift. You see? So these are the type of things that I'd like us to explore, and I'd like us to explore with different people. Now, you have some questions that you wanted to ask me, which I think are fantastic. And we're about the the halfway mark, and we've got less than 25 minutes. One of the things I'd like to do at this time is to recognize some great people. One is my son, Aaron, and my other son. They're twins, Aaron and Adam. Their mom, who's passed into heaven, my mom, all these great people, all our family, all our friends, all our Facebook friends. I want to thank them because without them, I would have never gotten where I got. And so this is part of, especially in this climate, to see the cup as half full, right? And to give back. And in that cup being half full, we're the chalice. We're the sacred ones. So keep the positive. Get rid of the Maya, the illusion, the ego. Empty that cup, and now God and the angels and our friends fill it up with some of the most extraordinary things. And I feel you're one of them, right? I never met you before. There's 7 billion people, more than 7 billion people. How did we come together? So remember the appreciation you talk about repeatedly. Appreciation,
Gratitude.
Gratitude. So I have gratitude for you, and I thank you for being on, this podcast, which is our first one. And my son Aaron and my son Adam have been saying, Dad, you got to do this. You're funny. You love soccer. You want to teach. You want to help. And you've helped make that happen. So I'm forever grateful to you and Beth and Jeremy. So tell me about some of the questions that are important to you. And also we have our corporate sponsors, which is Hyox Superwater is one of them. We have our IM360 soccer directory, which is we're providing free text listings to all the different soccer clubs. Coming up on May 5th and 6th is a free online webinar with some of the biggest personalities. Anson Dorrance, who...
How does someone get to that webinar?
I'm going to share that information, Brandon. Thank you for asking. We're going to have our digital publication, our flipping book platform that you now can help raise money for your organization, raise money for it's called Feed America, and also America Scores. And America Scores helps inner city kids, underprivileged kids to stay involved, get involved in soccer and stay involved, and helping them with, discipline and education. So I'll be able to get you all of that information, but I just want to thank I want to thank Bobby Graham from WinStar Soccer Academy. He's in Toronto. He has put over 500 players into college pro national team level, and we're working together in a technical way. And I would love, Brandon, to get you and him hooked up with his sports performance guys to be able to talk to his players on an online webinar. So there's so many great people. Keith Tozer was my former teammate in Cincinnati when my sons were born 41 years ago. We're still friends. And Keith and Zoltan Toth and Julie V and Zoltan's son were all working together on this Feed America summit on the May 5th and 6th, starting at 11 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time. So please go ahead with some of those questions, Brandon.
Sure, David. So my thing is, I want to get in the mind of players. I want to know what makes them tick, what makes them better than other people, what makes them drive to get better, what makes them want to go through that pain that it takes to get better, what makes them be able to focus better, to stay motivated, not lose concentration when they've got a million things going on outside of their lives. What makes them, when the ref whistles, what makes them be able to stay right here in the right now? That's my passion in teaching players how to do that better. Let me start with you, David. Like, how did you professionally get to where you got? Like, I'm sure there's a lot
You
of
got about 20 episodes.
a lot of rejection right.
Oh yeah.
No, but like, tell me, just give me a quick synopsis of like what it was. I'm sure I'm sure there was a lot of rejection involved. You didn't make the first tryout you ever went to, or maybe you did. I don't know. Tell me about it.
Well, it's interesting because again, we had 9 children, 8 living in our family, and we lived in the projects in Newark, and then we moved to the projects in Harrison. So we called it the Harrison Gardens. I lived in 613. So we had 8 kids every single day. We had 4 in the bed, right? So man, you had to do what you got to do, and you had to share. If you had a piece of bread, you couldn't eat that whole piece of bread yourself. You can't watch your brother and sister, go hungry. So my mother, her amazing love and her amazing work ethic, she was big into hope, right? Unbelievable. She always worked hard for every penny she earned. When you're a waitress and you're getting a penny, a nickel, a dime, if you got a quarter, oh my gosh, that was gigantic. $1 back then. So all the money she made, all of that, the welfare, the food stamps, all of that was to help us. So I was around that culture of love, of working together, of pulling together. And so I call it the Jersey workaround. You either go through that pain and get the gift of that pain and integrate it in you and make it part of you and then offer it to others, or you go around it, because nothing is going to stop me. My mother was extraordinary when she was laser focused. She went back and got her GED, her high school equivalency. She got an interior design degree, and she traveled all over the world. I mean, that's inspiration. And my mother couldn't afford a single nickel to get me to college. And I knew that. So I wasn't going to put any burden on my mother. I took any job. I worked incredibly, still played soccer. And my grades were not good at all because I didn't have the mom and dad, that support, the educational support. But I did everything I could do to get to, and I was the MVP in the state of New Jersey, which was an honor beyond an honor. That was Mr. Barber, who was my high school principal. Mr. Gary was my woodshop teacher, but they were my soccer coaches. And they got me to places I would have never gotten to. Manfred Schelscheid, who was our state team coach, he became a Hall of Famer. Glenn Mooch-Meyernick, Hall of Famer. Bobby Smith, Hall of Famer from one state team. Santiago Formoso played for the New York Cosmos with Pele, winning championships. I became the captain of the national team from one state team. So we had John Armit from the Scots Club. It was a corner bar, with the Scottish people. We had 5 captains in the national team. Tom Flory in the 30s. I was the modern one. John Harkes, Tony Miola, and Tab Ramos. One club, 5 captains.
Wow.
So that atmosphere and that culture. And you know what else? I had 4 sisters, but I had 3 other brothers. And man, when you're the youngest brother, you got to fight like a dog. They won't let you get away with it. My brothers didn't. My brother Michael, my oldest, then Anthony, then my brother Tommy. They didn't give me any quarter because they knew if I was going to make it, I had to be tough. And I had to be, as you said, resilient. I had to be able to work around. So that built me. I mean, days we'd go without food. It was incredible. And, our playground was hopping over fences with barbed wire and factories and trains, with real trains, not the little ones you get at Christmas. This is the environment we grew up in. Chemical factories spewing the worst chemicals you ever see in your life. The water, the rivers, if you went in this river, you were lucky you get out. This is the kind of things we grew up with. But looking back, the love and the family and the support, it was just incredible. So it developed that mindset that if this guy tries to break your leg, you got to be smart enough to deal with it and take care of business And don't back down, but do it in a smart way. That developed that mentality. Somebody says something about you, your mother, this, that, and the other thing, you just get on with it, right? Because if you attack that person, and I see emotion as like fuel for your house, you either heat the house or you let it out of control, it burns your house down, right? If a guy whacks you from behind, the first thing you do is whack him. Guess what? Referee didn't see the first one. He saw you whack him. You get a red card. You get hurt. Your team gets hurt. You'll never get, that chance at a championship. So that helped me to become captain of the national team. It helped me to win 3 championships with the New York Arrows in the Major Indoor Soccer League. So that's what I had to do. And every day I worked off the wall. I saw Pelé in 1966, the first time soccer was on major TV, ABC. And the Portuguese kicked them out of the World Cup. I mean, viciously killed them, carried them out. Then England goes on to beat West Germany. Guess what? Jeff Hurst, who scored 3 goals in the World Cup final, was my teammate in Seattle. So imagine I watched Pelé, and I made a promise to myself that I would play against Pelé one day. So for 9 years, I worked off that wall and did my own training. And every kick, every brick I hit, repeatedly, turning, shooting, thinking ahead, vision, control, away from pressure, step overs, it didn't matter. I was playing against Pelé. 9 years later, Brandon, 9 years later, I'm marking Pelé. And I had to go in. Remember the mentality you were asking me? I'm from Jersey. So I had to measure myself against the greatest that's ever lived. Because if I feared him, guess what? He controls me. I respect him. I control myself. You see the difference? And that kind of mentality is what I've always approached life in, people, circumstances. And so now, part of what I am here for is giving back. I want to share this knowledge. I want people to then call us on our line and say, Coach David, Coach Brandon, tell me about how you dealt with XYZ. Because that's what this is all about, right? So go ahead. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, just the laser focus and patience to have a goal that you set and it take 9 years to get there and to not give up on that goal. That's just inspiring. It's amazing.
Thank you. Now, Brandon, also think of this. And a lot of the kids nowadays, they have so many distractions, drugs, CV, all this stuff. The internet, cell phones, girls, everything, right? The girls have the guy on and on. Think about what you're sacrificing and think about what you're getting in return. And that was one of my driving forces. When the other guys went to drink, I virtually never drank, never did drugs, none of that stuff. So I was giving up that stuff, but giving up alcohol, which is making me sick or ruining my body or my mind or my liver or whatever, smoking, oh my gosh, never. So what I sacrificed and then what I gave up and the rewards of me playing against Pelé and the greatest people that ever walked on the planet, of me getting married, of me having my children, my sons Aaron and Adam, traveling all over the world. That's what I gave up this to get all that. And I'm now where I'm able to now give back to people. What would you think? You think that's a good risk reward, like a good, payback? What do you think?
Man, they say you get what you give.
There you go.
I
like
it.
That. Very simple, very elegant. You give what you give, right?
You get what you give.
Oh, sorry, you get what you give, yeah? Or you reap what you sow. That's another one.
Yeah.
Right? If you're sowing anger and this and that, let me tell you something. You said patience, you're right. That was laser focused too. But it was also an impatience in there. Like a drive that somebody was always coming from behind me. I always knew there was another David DeRico out there, and maybe even better. So what do I have to do to stay ahead of my game of people I don't even know? I've never met these people, but when you show up for a practice, you want me to teach you or offer you a very simple trick of the trade or something to master? You know what I tell the players? The first thing you do is you go up to the coach and you shake his hand, you look him in the eye and you give him a firm handshake. You say, David DeRico, Harrison High School, Kearney Scots. I was the center midfield. It is a great honor to be on your team. I look forward to working with you. Now, let me ask you, Coach, if you had a player come up to you and say that, whether you're in a wheelchair or you're flying in the moon, what's your first impression of that player?
This guy's serious. This guy's not messing around. This guy is confident, extremely confident. It's a very ballsy thing to do.
Respect, manners, great upbringing, knows what he wants. And coach, anything you need me to do, anything you want me to learn, I'm here for you. Anytime you have any time off before soccer, during soccer, or after soccer, I would love to sit down. I'd love to go over the tapes. Oh my gosh, if you've seen that guy, I make him a captain the first day. I never see him play.
I wouldn't care if he had 3 left feet.
That's my point. And now, if the children know, the kids nowadays, they're not soccer educated. They don't have a vision of what the game should look like. In Brazil, you roll the ball out to some Brazilian kids that have never met each other. The ball stays on the ground. Pass, move, right? You throw a ball to kids in America, the ball's getting thumped up in the air. That's not our way. That's not enjoyable for us. So how do we take the best of that? You understand? So now we're saying to the kids, we now have our own style of play. No matter where you play, Coach Brandon, you're the coach. My benchmark for you and everybody in America, everybody in the world, how many geniuses are you producing? You can teach the way you want to teach. How many geniuses? People that when they get the ball, the entire stadium is full. They're all standing up. They're all singing. And they're all waiting for Brandon to have that ball and say, get ready. He's going to juice that guy. And he's going to do things that you've never seen before. That's our benchmark. It's real simple. You figure it out. We'll help you. We'll give you tools. We'll help to empower you. But it's up to you to become your own master, your own genius, your own way of reaching people. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Beautiful. So what other beautiful questions you have for me?
Did you ever have a time when your confidence started to lower for whatever reason, and you did something specific to get it back to either where it was before or even better? And what did you do? How'd you go about that?
Excellent questions. Excellent. I was 16, not quite 17. And I got invited out to the Olympics out in St. Louis, Southern Illinois University. Now, we played on concrete. We played on asphalt. We played in the worst conditions you could play. We had this place called the courts. It was a tennis court. We were too poor for tennis. We tore the nets down. We tore the poles down. Finally, they sealed the holes, and we set up goals. And we played 10 against 10, 12 against 12, 15 against 15. Just like in Brazil, just like in the streets. This is what we did, street soccer in the courts. And that's where you made your bones, right? So that's how we played against guys 35, 40 years old when we were 10, 11, 12. That's what they do in Brazil. The guy gives you an elbow when you're not looking. You're like, you start crying and everybody looks at you. No, no, no. You can't do that, man. You got to figure a way. So we grew up with that. So I go out to the Olympic trials, and Brandon, I was so insane. I'm not kidding. Insane. I was telling guys I never met before, I was cursing at these guys. If you don't tackle the guy's on my team. I'm saying I never met the guy before. I said, hey, Brandon, you don't tackle the guy, I'll break your leg. this is the kind of passion I had at 16 years old. There was guys 35, 40 years old at those tryouts. There was like hundreds of teams, 20 fields. The fields I played on was like an old man's head, balled up the middle and little grass on the side. These were fully carpeted fields, perfect goals, no sagging goals, perfect nets, no holes in the nets, referees, everything. They chose another guy ahead of me. He was 29, going to be 32. I was 16, going to be 20. They chose him before me, Brandon. I thought they hit me with a sledgehammer in my stomach. I was so devastated because I went there to make the team. And by the way, that was the Olympic team Shep Messing was on that went to the Olympics in Germany, in Munich, where the Palestinians killed the Israeli athletes. And my gosh, does Shep have stories about that. But my point is, I missed that. So I had to go home to face my mother. I had to face my brothers and sisters. I had to face my family, all my friends. And you know what I said? You know what? I'm going to prove these guys wrong. And that's what I did. And another thing, a practical thing, I played in Seattle with Mike England, captain of Wales, played for Tottenham Hotspur, central defender for 9 years, one of the greatest central defenders of all time. He taught me how to think ahead, mark my man, pick out a midfielder, while I was on defense, step in front of the guy and play one touch. Pure genius. Exactly how Pele played the game. So I was going through a rough patch. I said to Jimmy Gabriel, who was our assistant coach, and I said to Mike, I said, Mike, I'm having trouble. Sometimes I'm looking at a guy. I'm looking at Brandon. He's 10 yards away, and I pass the ball, and they're stealing it. He said, David, the answer is in your question. I said, what do you mean? You're looking at Brandon. He's seeing you look at Brandon. You're taking forever to make the decision. He's stealing the ball. He said, what you need to do is think ahead before you receive the ball. See that the defender's away from Brandon. Brandon now is allowed to think ahead. I pass you the ball before he steals it from me or your guy steals it from you. I'm already going for a wall pass, a third man run. And Mike said to me, when you're having a rough patch, just make a simple 5-yard pass. And once you do, you'll settle down, you'll relax, you'll regain your confidence. So that kind of wisdom from these, what I call masters, Pele, Mike England, all these guys, when you have that kind of advice, and I could offer that advice to Brandon, Brandon in turn could offer it to others. It's like, to me, it's like Johnny Appleseed, right? I have
he was telling you to play chess while you were playing checkers.
Absolutely.
You were playing one step ahead, and he's saying play 3 steps ahead.
Play 10 steps ahead. Learn how to use a simple strong side ball to keep possession, like moving your pawn, and it's threatening the knight or the bishop. And all of a sudden, they're looking at this pass, but on the weak side, now I'm going to go in and checkmate them. Switching the ball to the weak side, which is one of the secret sauces of breaking down Pele being a genius. And that was having not only the incredible skills and the attitude, the physicality, the genius, but the fundamentals, the standards, the culture, and the patterns. That was some of the most extraordinary things I learned from playing against these players. And you know what, to leave it, because we're close to the end of our session, Brandon, every day I wanted to improve on something. Every day. Mike England and I used to be 60 yards away from each other. We would play 2-touch. He'd hit the ball, I'd control it, prepare it, clip it 60 yards. If it went off target, I lost the point. If he miscontrolled, he lost the point. Same with me. 60-yard weak side balls, strong side balls, all that stuff. Every single day, left foot, right foot. That was another thing. Every single day, Santiago Formosa was my benchmark. Genius with the left foot. I never seen anybody like him, and I played against the best in the world. him as a youth player, in the courts in Harrison, and every day, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, because it gave you more options. So we only have about a minute to go.
Let me talk about my picture before we
Please.
finish. So this was in Moscow in 2018. I met Ronaldo. I got to play tennis with him for a few minutes in my chair. My buddy Rodolfo, who's another Brazilian, he had friends who was doing a documentary with Ronaldo.
Fantastic.
So that's how we managed that. Like, I literally sat in the car with Ronaldo with my wheelchair folded up in his trunk while they dropped us off. And I asked him one question about soccer. That was it. I said, Ronaldo, what's your all-time favorite goal? And he said, without skipping a beat, there's not one. I was like, what? He was like, goals are like children. All goals are equally loved. All goals
Whoa, my gosh, what a way to finish, brother.
Yeah.
That's pure genius.
And if you think about it, if you think that way, a scoring goal at the final of a World Cup is no more nervous-wracking than scoring, the first goal of wherever, like second game of the World Cup.
Well, one of your favorite gentlemen, Ronaldo, the original, they call him the phenomenon o phenomenal. He is a genius master in our genius soccer. We have 10 major skill sets. He is our double touch master. And I just saw a film on Netflix about Bobby Robson, and Bobby Robson was his coach at Barcelona. And in that video, he does double touches, and he's the one that scored the goal against Germany in the final with a double touch. That was just pure magic. Brandon, it's been absolutely brilliant, and I love doing this. I hope we're going to continue. And I'd just like to sign off. Thank you to you, all our people that are going to be listening to this, all our fans. And keep in mind, play soccer for the love of the game.
Yep.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, David.
Take care.
Take care.